So I wanted to just start a little early in my life, and so I only have 10 minutes. I'm going to try to condense this, but I'm one of those few people who really knew what I wanted to do at a pretty young age. I was in 4th grade when I announced that I wanted to be a lawyer. I didn't really know for sure all that meant. My family really didn't have any lawyers. In fact, I was the first college graduate out of my family, and so law school was a laudable, I mean, it seemed unattainable in spite of the fact I really wanted it. I graduated from high school at 16, and I lived in a small town in Colorado, and back then you didn't get to go to college online. And so I was faced with the choice of not going to college or moving away from home at 16. Those were kind of my choices, and I didn't feel ready to leave for college or leave home at that time. So instead I stayed home and I went to work. And I ended up meeting and marrying my husband at 18. And so by that point, now I'm a married woman and school had not yet begun for me. But I still had the desire, and I started trying to figure out how is this possible for me. And so I started taking a class or two as I could afford it at a community college. And it took me 6 years to earn an associate's degree, a 2-year degree. And looking back on it now, I don't know if I had known how long it would actually take if I would have kept with it. But the reality is that even that time would have passed anyway, right? And so even just taking a course here and there and having it add up got me down the path toward where I was hoping to go. I was fortunate enough that I received a scholarship, a full scholarship, to finish my bachelor's degree. And so I was able to, after 6 years to get a 2-year degree, I finished off the last 2 in 2 years, in 4 semesters. Having done that, though, while I was still having children, in fact, my youngest son was born on December 30th, which was a semester break for me, and he was back in school with me on January 4th when the new semester started, because I didn't want to take the risk of losing the scholarship that was going to allow me to finish. And so needless to say, after those 2 years, I was a little tired. Moved from Michigan to Utah and decided to kind of take a break and figure out what was going to happen next for me. I will say this, that I still didn't think law school was a possibility because of just the life choices that I had made. And so I had pursued my undergraduate degree in the field of law. I got my associate's degree as a legal assistant, and I pursued a bachelor's degree in legal administration because I thought at the very least I could work at a law firm, right, even if I wasn't a lawyer. And then I, on a whim, took the LSAT just to see, and this will tell you how naive I was about the process. Mary Hoagland's here. She was here at that time. I called the law school admissions office and I said, if this is my GPA and this is my LSAT score, could I get in there? And thankfully, it was at a time that I don't know if it was just the perfect time that they said, send us your application. That was in July. They offered a position in the class in August, and I just wasn't ready at that time. I hadn't made plans about what to do with my children and how I was going to make it work. And so I deferred for a year. And then started the following year and managed to be in the class of 02, which is the best class. And so it was a really good thing that I deferred. But law school for me was different than my classmates. There were many of my classmates who didn't have children, many who had children but had a stay-at-home spouse who helped to take care of them. And for me, it was, I had to manage my children and their activities and their needs in addition to my classwork. And so I was panicked my first semester, thinking there was no way that I was going to be able to compete. I would take my children to school, and then I'd come here, and people would already be here studying. And then as I would leave to go get my kids and pick them up those same people were still here studying, and I was having to leave, and I thought there's just no way. But thankfully, yeah, I made it through, and then went to work at a firm based out of New York, which was a pretty demanding job. But the reality for me was becoming a lawyer allowed me to manage my family so much more than if I had stayed in the position of a paralegal or a legal administrator, because I had so much more flexibility in being able to work the demands of my job around the demands of my family. And so for me, it was a great fit, and I loved it. I did a lot of things in law school to figure out that I enjoyed litigation, which is why I pursued that as a career. And thankfully, along the way, I had some really great mentors and support who gave me opportunities and helped me to grow as an attorney. And you know, I said a couple of times on a whim, I didn't really anticipate becoming a judge. That was not, I mean, law school was, for me, the reach, right? Becoming a judge after law school was just something I hadn't even contemplated. I applied on a whim. And the reason I did that, I applied thinking it was not going to happen for me at that point, but I thought it might be a 5-year plan or a 7-year plan. And there's a lot of advice in becoming a judge that sometimes you have to apply multiple times in order to get yourself known and for people to understand who you are and what your practice is. And I was very fortunate again to be appointed the first time that I applied, and that changed things for me once more, and I had to adjust. And so I took the bench in 2014, and that has been such an amazing experience. Once again, welcomed by people who were great mentors and helped me as I transitioned from practice to becoming a judge. And so I look back now on my career and just think I'm so grateful that I pursued this path, and I'm so grateful that it gave me the opportunity to do the things that I've done and to be still very much involved with my family. We've obviously been reflecting a bit since I became a grandma, and the one thing, sorry, I'll get emotional here, but you know, the one thing that my son said to me is that looking back, he just doesn't remember me ever not being there. I was there for games, I was there to do things with them, and my career in the law is what gave me the opportunity to do that. And so that's my story. And I just want to encourage you to understand that there are traditional paths to the law, but there are so many other ways as well. And certainly I would consider mine to be a non-traditional path. But if you're determined and if it's something that you want, you can get there.